Bring it back.
Quick comment, this video assumes you've seen all Marvel films leading up to the Avengers Infinity War and has major spoilers in it. So if you haven't seen it or the movies leading up to it and you care about spoilers, don't watch this video. So I made a comment on a PewDiePie video that was ripe with controversial discussion. He talked about how Marvel was terrible and everyone was idol worshipping and said that it wasn't healthy. So I made a comment that was mostly meant to talk about Marvel. But I got a lot of replies and even some people saying I should make a video talking about Marvel. So before I get into it, I just want to get a couple things out of the way first. I wouldn't harp too much on PewDiePie for that video. He got a lot of hate. And you won't catch me saying it was for Marvel fanboys. Although PewDiePie's fanboys were quick on the comments that disagreed with their idol, I myself said that he seemed pretty salty for some reason, and a good deal of comments talked just about that. But let's think about it for a second, guys. Felix already lives with Marcia. They spend all their time together, and that's before getting engaged. So what's the purpose of getting married at this point? It wouldn't have to do with eventually starting a family, would it? So I think that Mr. Shellberg is just doing what a lot of people do with the concept of having kids. He's probably taking a good long look at the world and saying, I don't want my kids to be negatively affected by all these things I don't agree with. That might make him a little too critical of some things, but I'm just saying let's try and back off of the hatred right now, because he's only human. Anyway, let's get to the part of the video I've really been wanting to make. Marvel. Is it idol worshipping or something else? I definitely say there's a bit of idol worshipping in Marvel films. There's obvious political agendas on everything Disney touches nowadays. Is that kind of idol worshipping bad? I'll let you take on that topic. But even if it is, I think that mindset stems from our need to have role models. We see these people and want to be more like them. Even if they're fictional, we still see the value in the character. When I think of good Marvel role models, two come to mind very fast: Thor and Spider-Man. Of course, there's afterthoughts that bring up more examples, but by the time I'm done with this video, you'll get the point without the extra character development. Thor is that douchebag jock born with everything: strength, looks, royalty, and resources. In the first movie, he learns to get over himself and realize that everything he has is there so that he can take care of others. Spider-Man is a literal kid thrown into very adult and very dangerous problems, often being completely over his head. Despite failure after failure, he doesn't give up, even when everyone has given up on him. In a scene near the end of the movie, he takes one of Tony Stark's sick burns on Peter and uses it to fuel himself to become a person capable of overcoming the problems that formerly overwhelmed him. If Marvel is made for teens, there's definitely some great movies out there with role models for them to look to. To be honest, I wouldn't say it's for teens entirely, though. I think there's concepts that a typical teenager wouldn't identify with as much. Of course, there are exceptions, and I'm not saying that a teen couldn't get it. I'll use Iron Man for an example. He's a genius. Unlike Thor, life is easy for him because he's innately just that good, just that smart. There are plenty of times where he could do his own thing. Like in the first film, he could have stayed a drunken partying superhero and life would have pretty much worked out for him, because he'd either be too smart to catch or he could just stop being Iron Man. Despite all this, he gets past his ego and does more and more to improve himself and do what he thinks is right. Why is that? I actually think his problem is something a lot of people face: living with your intelligence. I think everybody has times in their life when they see problems others don't. And so they're faced with the moral dilemma: should I ignore this since nobody will even know if I do? Or should I do something about it because I know it's a problem? Tony sees things other people don't. Not just in the sense of, I saw Thanos before it was cool, but by seeing Thanos, he realized the huge problems the human race could face and were far beyond the testing battle of the first Avengers film. After the battle, and every subsequent title he's in, Tony Stark is trying harder and harder to prepare for the absolute worst situations. The army of Iron Men, the Hulkbuster, Ultron, Vision, even Spider-Man. Yes, I'd say Spider-Man is a strangely human answer to his problems. Because even after he created Vision, who is exactly what Ultron was supposed to be, he still found a person, a flesh and blood and brain person that he could mentor. When Spider-Man says, "I just want to be like you," Tony says, "I wanted you to be better." Why is this so important to my point of Iron Man being an adult role model? Oh yes, I'll tell you why. There's a hard habit for the human race to break, and that's tradition. It's because every person only lives for so long, and so by doing things in the way a mentor teaches us to, we know, 1, what to expect from the lifestyle, and 2, if the lifestyle actually works. As a kid, it makes us seek out role models and we try to mold ourselves to be a little bit more like them. It's why we listen to our parental figures when they tell us we're doing something stupid and need to stop. Well, sometimes anyway. As an adult though, either through age and experience or by being forced into a situation, we realize that we have to be the role model. Tony Stark wants his many inventions and machinations to protect the Earth, but I imagine that he realizes that he is the one that created them. He's the flesh, blood, and brains that sees what is really at stake. And in Peter Parker, he sees a kid that's smart enough to create pragmatic and spectacular inventions on a budget. He has physical gifts that can make him into the ultimate superhero, and he has an amazing heart that leads Peter to push himself beyond his limits to help people. He is the prime candidate for being the pupil to take up Iron Man's mantle if Tony Stark ever stops being a superhero, for one reason or another. So Tony admits he feels responsible if Peter ever dies. But I think that after he forgives Peter, a man in his situation would feel responsible for who Peter and Spider-Man become. This obviously destroys Tony Stark in the worst way after Thanos kills Peter Parker. Not only did Tony lose, but he lost his heir to the responsibility of protecting the world. Tony was probably the first hero to seriously take the fate of the world on his shoulders, and he has totally and utterly failed. Of course, he's also torn up because he feels responsible for Peter's death, but do you see how things are starting to get very layered and complicated? I might venture to call it adult to identify with Iron Man by this point. For some people, life can get bad. As you get older, your problems become bigger, and if you fail, consequences are much, much worse. Just a friendly reminder, I'm not saying younger people don't get it or haven't lived real-world problems. I'm just saying that older people are allowed more responsibility and time to do things and so have an insight that helps them identify with Tony Stark's character. I've loved Spider-Man since I was a kid, and he's going to stay my favorite superhero, probably for the rest of my life. But I could identify with the high school web slinger a lot more when I was in high school, and seeing Iron Man deal with his gigantic scope of problems really hits me at my core because of the problems I've dealt with or I'm dealing with now. If you're younger and you think you're smart and mature now, then instead of getting mad, rejoice that you're going to have more time to build yourself into an even better person if you so wish. So thank you for being part of the Lemon Fresh experience. We're at the end of the video, so leave a like if you enjoyed. Feel free to leave a comment and add to the discussion. Do you think that fictional characters as role models is stupid or effective? A shout out to all the people both in my life and in comments that support my efforts in making videos. Without them, I wouldn't have even made a 4th video so soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next episode. Of course, he's also torn up because he feels responsible for Peter's death, but